Your mom passed away in 2020, and you had a dream where you saw her, and that dream inspired a song, Between There and Here. And did you wake up from that dream and write down your recollections of it immediately?
Actually, I didn't write anything down. Coincidentally, I had that dream on a Thursday night, and then the following day, I already had a meeting planned with Jenny. We were going to write a song together. We were supposed, or try to write a song together. We were supposed to do this the month earlier, but it had gotten postponed because my mom passed away, and I had to go travel for the funeral. So we'd rescheduled it, and I remember waking up from that dream and thinking how much I wanted to just hold on to the feeling of it. And I feel like when you kind of only get one chance to express what you dreamt and still have the feeling. You can tell the story, you might be able to say the words, but you won't feel the feeling. And I wanted to hold on to the feeling as long as I could, so that I could somehow try and bottle it or keep some kind of pure version of it, and put it into a song. So I didn't write it down. I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell my wife about the dream. I kind of just had a very quiet morning. I got ready and didn't really say much at all. And then when I got together with Jenny over Zoom, because this was in the pandemic, I told her, I said, this is, I have something I want to write about, and it's about my mom. And Jenny knew, she had known about my mom's passing and everything. And so she said, okay. And so I just started I waited until I could talk to her before I said anything about the dream. I said, this is what happened. And I just kind of recounted, beat by beat, what happened in the dream and how I felt about it. And we had a Google Doc open between the two of us, and we were writing things down. Really, Jenny was writing things down as I kind of
just stream of consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. And then that became the sort of the raw material for what the song would be. But yeah, I wanted to keep it inside, so that it didn't dissipate by the time I got to the point where I would be sitting down to try and write.
It's very visual from the beginning that you're describing this very real experience, holding out a glass of water, calling your name, hearing your voice. The door is left open. The lyrics of the door are left ajar. More poetic than my descriptions, but it really is, you're taking us through this very real experience, that this thing that you felt it was real.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was so exceptional about that dream for me, besides, of course, being able to see my mom for the first time, was just how mundane it was. It was not, there were certain cliche dream things about, oh, it was my house, but it wasn't my house, all that kind of stuff. But there was just a really palpable, familiar memory to it too. Every night I used to bring my mom a glass of water when we lived in the same house. There was a time when my dad was living elsewhere because his job was, his job as a food scientist was in the Midwest, but we still had our house in Massachusetts. My sister was away in grad school, and it was just me and my mom living at home. And she would go to bed a little earlier than I would, and before I went to sleep, she would, she would always say, like, could you bring me a glass of water? And I would get a glass of water. It was always this, this stainless steel. My family, like so many Indian families, have these like stainless steel cups, and I would always just bring that cup of water, and that was what it was in the dream. Was I needed to leave a glass of water at her nightstand, and then we would say goodnight, and I would, and she'd have the TV on, and I would close the door so I wouldn't disturb her as I, went off and read or whatever while for the next hour while she went to sleep. And all of that stuff was in the dream. So it was very easy to kind of describe it visually because it wasn't just a dream. It was a memory that I had countless times.
How did you construct it musically?
When I actually got home from the funeral, the day that I flew home, I sat down with my guitar, not with the idea of just that I was gonna write something or anything, but it was a strange time. You know, my wife and I were in the house. It was my first time being back home since the moment that I learned my mom had passed away. You know, I got on a plane an hour later, and then had spent the next couple weeks in Rhode Island with my dad. And so I was coming back, and I was just in the house, and I had picked up the guitar and I played some chords. I had played this little finger picking pattern, and I liked it. I didn't know what it was going to be, and I recorded a little voice memo. And then when I got together with Jenny to start writing this, it was about 2 weeks later. And I thought, well, I do have this piece of music that also feels connected to my mom, or feels connected to this feeling, and feels connected to my grief in some way. And so I pulled that progression out and tried to, and then we tried to pair these ideas and these memories of this dream to the feeling and the sort of pacing of that guitar part.
There's a part of the song that is played by Yo-Yo Ma. He's playing cello. That represents your mom's voice. How did you sort of come with the idea of having the cello represent her voice in the song?
I think one of the most extraordinary conversations of my life around that time with Yo-Yo Ma. I was going to be moderating a conversation for him for an event. I'd interviewed him for Song Exploder and for Home Cooking as well. And with both of those, we had talked, you know, he and I had talked sort of not quite as formally as a pre-interview, but we'd talked in addition to the times when we actually were on mic. So, and he wanted to do something similar, you know, before the event, just get together. And I thought it was to sort of prepare, you know, I could tell him what my questions were going to be and stuff like that. But really he just wanted to talk a little bit about life and just things. And after I kind of gave him my spiel about what I was going to ask him for our event, he just was asking me about my own life. And the theme that I was presenting to him for the conversation we were going to have was creative longevity, about how he maintains his relationship to music and creativity, like over such a long career. How does he stay connected to it, and stuff like that. And then he turned the tables on me, and he said, well, what are your answers to these questions? And he asked me about just stuff that was going on in my life, and it was incredibly kind. And I told him about how I had been separated from making music for so long, and how I was just finally getting back to making it. That one of the things that had kept me from making music, I think at this time it was still an idea. I'd only written that one song with Jenny. I had only written Memory Palace, and I was setting out on trying to make music again. But and I told him why it had been so hard for me to write music, because for a long time it was a lot easier to imagine making an episode of Song Exploder than making a song of my own. Because it felt like something I knew how to do it, and it had a certain process that I had come to understand, and it had a cadence. You know, I put out an episode every 2 weeks, and I felt like I was somehow of service when I made an episode of Song Exploder. I was doing something for another artist, for people who might want to know about that song or who wanted to feel inspired or something like that.
Yeah.
Versus making a song where I didn't know if would a song ever come out? Would it be any good? Would it serve anybody other than me? Would it be just indulgent? These were all things that had kind of kept me from writing songs in the past. And I was telling him about this, and he said, well, as you're writing music, let me ask you this. He could see, we were talking over Zoom, so he could see in my studio. He'd been there for Song Exploder before, and he was like, I know you have all these instruments around you, and one of them was a cello. I have a cello in the corner of my room, and he was like, as you're writing music, could you imagine writing a cello part, and could you write a cello part for me to play? Because then you would be obligated to me, and it was this unbelievable gift, to put it that way. Essentially, it was, in a way, it was kind of like when Mike had told me to write a song for Save the Date, that it was like,
yeah, I
had to do this thing out of obligation to someone else. But really, it was this judo flip that he turned it around on me. So suddenly now I had to do this thing for myself in order to fulfill this promise. And I mean, what am I going to do? Like, not fulfill a promise that I was going to make to 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐬?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about him, and when I wrote this song about my mom, I was thinking about her and how she used to sing. She would sometimes sing 1AM radio songs to herself, and I thought, oh, is there a way that I could kind of bring this version of, the ghost of my mom, essentially? Could she have a presence in this song? And I had hummed this part, but it didn't feel right for it to be. If I hummed it, it's just me. If it's humming, it's just human. And I thought, well, this was the right moment and the right opportunity to ask 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐬 to play something, because his playing is so human and it's so expressive and honestly more magical than anything I could do with my voice. And so it felt like the perfect instrument to capture the idea of the memory of my mom's voice.
Hey, it's Guy here, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more like it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. For the audio version, just open your favorite podcast app, search The Great Creators, and tap follow. If you like this clip and you want to watch another one, please click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.